Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jolene Mujica I am the head of trends and tours at WindowsWear. Welcome to another Tuesday edition of our WindowsWear live presentations. Today we're going to take a look at some retail news and see what's going on in the community and in the industry in large. As we know, given the times and the circumstances, things are changing hour by hour, day by day. We're seeing all kinds of exciting developments that are starting to get pushed forward. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of this week's news. As always, this is meant to be a dialogue, so please feel free to leave a comment, leave a question in any of our online platforms that we are streaming through currently, whether it is Zoom, Instagram Live, Facebook Live, or LinkedIn Live. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Our first article is something that is relatively topical. Well, all of them are, but how e-commerce returns are reshaping the physical store, right? So brands are starting to take notice of the fact that there is an increased number of customers that prefer to make returns in store, right? It's interesting because of the pandemic, so much obviously has gone digital, has gone online, e-commerce, right? Things that we weren't used to buying online, all of a sudden we were, i.e., groceries and pharmaceutical goods, etc. But we're starting to see that people still, by and large, choose to return things in person, even if they're buying it from an online resource. And on the USPS's calendar, January 2nd is a very key day. It's the day in which consumers make the most returns to e-tailers after the holidays. And the key to the rise of e-commerce is increased convenience, right? In almost every aspect of the purchasing process, right? The challenge lies in the crucial final step, which is the delivery of the goods from distribution centers to individual addresses. This is the point at which most logistical efficiencies start to break down, right? The ability to not only offer a free but also a seamless return process becomes a major factor for consumers in their choice of which brand to shop. And this is especially true for fashion retailers, right? For those whom I'm thinking particularly of sizing issues, right? Sometimes because you're purchasing online, you don't necessarily know. So you may buy two of the same product, one in different sizes, try them on with the intention of returning one. And this is by far the biggest contributor to the returning of packages from e-tailers. And as e-tailers, or e-commerce retailers, right? As e-commerce retailers continue to provide more sort of return-friendly policy, shoppers are starting to buy and return more online than ever. So here's just an assisted visual. What's fueling that, right? What does that mean for spatial design, right? Well, recent research shows that there's a significant number of consumers that actually prefer to return in store. And that's up to 35% of consumers prefer to return something they purchased from online into the store itself. Closer to half are willing to do so because of the environmental benefits. So this is a nice way to sort of remind retailers that consumers are really looking to practice more sustainable business practices, right? From the post-consumer world, right? They don't necessarily want tons of plastic in their packaging or excess paper, right? They want packaging to be very presentable and very sleek, but they also are cognizant of the environmental impact that all of that packaging and plastic has, right? So people, instead of putting their stuff back in the boxes and the plastic labels and utilizing, gas to go into their cars and go return it, right? They much rather just physically walk into the store and give the merchandise back to the actual retailer so then it can be put back into inventory that way. So that's a practice that we're starting to see more and more of, which is really sort of interesting. Let's move on let's take a look at the beauty world. So beauty trends that customers are buying during and post COVID. So during, meaning, the pandemic is very much not over. We are hopefully on the other side of it domestically here in the United States and worldwide. And, amid widespread quarantines, there were a lot of limits on in-person beauty services and social distancing and mask wearing requirements, right? Beauty customers are changing their spending habits, and they're starting to gravitate toward products that allow them to mimic the salon experience at home and protect them for potential impact of an increasingly digital lifestyle, right? So new data indicates that there are four key trends that we're seeing that are starting to emerge during this pandemic in the beauty world. Let's take a look at what those four trends are. So here's a nice little graph uh, laying some of that out. But the first trend we're seeing is at-home beauty tools, right? We've seen a lot of things emerge. The number one purchase was probably at-home beauty tools. The second thing that we're seeing that is very popular during this time is purple hair care products, which are essentially hair care products that are meant to preserve color, particularly for women who color their hair, who highlight their hair, right? No one has access to salons as readily available to them. So they're wanting to maintain their hair for longer amounts of times. The third one is serums, and the fourth is blue light blocking skincare. Now, these trends offer a product launch blueprint for beauty brands hoping to thrive despite the restrictions of non-existent in-store sales and a decrease in makeup purchasing. So what's interesting for the beauty world is while women and people who identify as female or non-binary are no longer necessarily putting on their face of makeup to walk into the office or to walk into that board meeting, right? It's a little more laid back in this arena of Zoom conferences and whatnot. People are still looking to feel beautiful in their own way, whether that's naturally. And so while makeup has substantially gone down in terms of purchasing, we're seeing all these buzzy categories of self-care and skincare start to emerge, right? And this gives an advantage to brands who already sell products in this space. And it also makes it vital that others move quickly to do so, right? Beauty tools were already rising in popularity prior to the pandemic. The search for facial steamers jumped 70% just in April, while face scrapers like washout tools have grown by as much as 300%, right? So people are at home and they finally, have the time to sort of invest the time into these regimented skincare routines that we may have heard of from beauty bloggers, but I always thought, during regular times, I just don't have the time or the patience for any of that. And even though hair salons are starting to reopen again, consumers are still really cautious about going to get their hair colored, right? Due to the physical contact that you have to have with your statisticians or with your colorists and the concerns for health and hygiene. So I suspect that at-home color kits are going to continue to grow in popularity, right? These were very popular in the 80s and 90s when all of these kits came out and you could dye your hair all kinds of funky fun colors, and then it went to a little more sort of organic and natural coloring. You can still, of course, find all of these kinds of kits in your pharmacies and your beauty stores, your CVS's and whatnot. But customers are also adding more steps to their skincare routines and their hair care routines, right? Serums, in particular, are on the rise in popularity. Vitamin C, hyaluronic acid, retinol serums all saw a 20 to 40% increase in searches during this time. And niacinamide serums have grown in search by 193%. Its popularity is probably due to the sort of up close and personal nature of like these Zoom calls that we're all on, right? So while people are not necessarily wanting to put on a full face of makeup, they do want to look alert and natural and dewy and sort of, the I woke up like this factor. And, a lot of these online conferences, whether it's through Zoom or, all of these other platforms, right? They tend to highlight skin's imperfections. This is also why we saw a surge in the selfie lights and the ring light purchasing at the beginning of the pandemic, right? People really wanted to sort of put their best foot forward, even if they weren't getting fully done up with hair, makeup, and outfits like they would on their 9-to-5 day-to-day life in their offices. We're also seeing a huge increase in screen time, which has turned attention to the impact of artificial blue light on the skin, right? Searches for blue light skincare grew 46% over the last 12 months. And this moment has given people more time to reflect and become aware of just how much time they're spending in front of their screens, right? Since the pandemic started, people have been sequestered in their homes for their own safety. And so we've been dependent on TV and smartphones and tablets and laptops, right? And that's a lot of screen time for the skin, especially particularly for the eyes. A lot of people, there's been a spike and an increase in migraines due to eye strain from all of the blue screens, right? So if we're looking out for, our headaches and our eyes, we also want to make sure that we're checking in with our skincare. And this really quick shift in consumer priorities basically further underscores the importance of the agility and speed at which these beauty companies today who fare best when they can react quickly to changing trends, right? And essentially, customers will always dictate trends, and it's up to the company and the brand to set up a diverse portfolio and always stay one step ahead. So while something like blue light skincare wasn't necessarily a priority for people ahead before March 2020, it certainly is now. And so we've seen a big pivot of the beauty industry to sort of face that head on and come up with products and formulas that they find will work for that, right? Supply and demand, it's pretty simple. Let's move on. So even as this pandemic persists, right, the future of retail is not completely locked down. We're starting to see as stores open, there's new guidelines, there's new rules. Every brand and institution will set up their own specific strategies as to how they want to do that. But we're starting to see, the general rules, of course, still apply, right? The retail industry is changing super quickly. And nothing resembles, what if you walk into a Zara right now, it's definitely not like walking into a Zara this year in January. And as shoppers continue their sort of adoption of this blended approach of retail, right? Meaning half e-commerce, half retail, classic brick and mortar. We're starting to see this blending and this hybrid of how retail is being approached, right? So before the COVID outbreak, consumers' use of buy online, pick up in store channels grew more than 4 times since 2014. So again, this idea that people are shopping online and either want to physically pick it up in store to sort of subvert the shipping, or maybe they just want to see it physically in person before they commit to it. But this trend continues its upward trajectory, as more than 75% of consumers share interest in the idea of buy online, pick up in store services. And 90% of those who have tried it considered their curbside experience really convenient and something that they would continue to adopt, right? Retailers that use this moment as an opportunity to reflect and rethink and reset their business models will definitely position themselves for a recovery that'll take shape in a bunch of different unexpected ways. And we're starting to see 4 major shifts in that realm. The first major shift is live interactions with store associates from home, right? So one of the best aspects of shopping in a brick and mortar store is engaging with store associates, right? So even if the consumer is not ready to step foot in a store, they can still receive that same experience from the comfort of their own homes. And a variety of collaborative tools are available to allow different sales associates of brands to show off their store floors with existing inventory. So it's safe for the consumer, it's safe for the associates and the staff that are working there, and it's still getting the job of incentivizing people to shop. The second thing we're seeing is self-shopping beyond the store shelf. So this is consumers browsing and selecting and buying items as they move around a store with ease through the use of a mobile app. When they're ready to check out or walk out, the app automatically finalizes the transaction with their credit card on file. It's simple, it's fast, and it's convenient, right? This is essentially what Amazon did when they opened up all of their Amazon Go locations throughout the United States. There's very few of them still. I know they beta tested it in Seattle, and it did really well. We have a couple of them here in New York City. I believe there's a couple in Chicago, but this idea of there are no checkout counters, there are no cash wraps, there's no interacting with anyone in the store. There's no bags, right? So it's a sort of sustainable way to shop, no paper. You go in, you grab your product, and you walk right out. And through the app and through beacon and geo technology, they know exactly what you grabbed, they know exactly where you are, and then you are charged on your credit card on file. The third thing is clienteling 2.0, right? So appointment booking has always been around. This is particularly for the domain of luxury. We've seen this, but appointment booking has become another tool that now many retailers, including big box stores, are adopting to engage in a more personalized shopping experience. Now, whether that's online or in store, right? This sense of security and this high quality service entices consumers to increase their transactional volume, right? So people are almost a lot more apt to purchase things if they have the confirmation of an associate sort of egging them on and sort of giving them advice as to, yes, that's a great fit, or why don't we try it in this color, right? Everything feels very personalized and people feel a little more incentivized to purchase. And the final thing we're seeing is personalized delivery. Now, we talked about this in that first article, right? Customers just don't want to feel like they've received their purchases the same day or the next day. They also want them to arrive in ways that are really environmentally sustainable and conscious, and that also fulfill their unique needs, right? The ability to choose the exact day a package comes or to pick it up curbside at a local store adds a level of convenience that is in very high demand. Let's take a look at what's going on over at Louis Vuitton. So for Louis Vuitton's biggest Shanghai store saw a record $22 million in August sales. So Louis Vuitton is on track to make sales history in China in one of the strongest COVID rebounds in retail history. Its flagship in Shanghai is Plaza 66, which is the largest in China, is expected to make $22 million just this past August. Now, in a typical month, sales at the store come in between 11 million to 13 million. So that's a 100% increase, right? And though Louis Vuitton declined to verify this number, it is believed to be the highest monthly sales figure in China's history. The record high sales tally was boosted in part by the brand's, by Louis Vuitton's Men's Spring 2021 show. Here you can see that show here, which was held in Shanghai at the beginning of August, and it set a record for live stream views in China. It was a huge spectacle. Of course, everything was very calculated and very safe according to social distancing guidelines and spacing. A lot of people are like, well, how did they pull this off, when China was in such dire straits? But remember that China had been going through the COVID pandemic all the way dating back to, December. So they're already on the other side of the crest, not quite where we are here in the United States. So this spectacle, which featured these giant inflatables, which you can see here in this image, and models stepping out of a cargo container, generated more than 100 million views across multiple platforms worldwide. That included 68 million views on microblogging site Weibo, 18 million views on Douyin, which is China's version of TikTok, and 8 million views on Tencent, right? The entire event was this national phenomenon, and while shoppers inevitably, after seeing the runway show, waiting outside of luxury stores to get all of those limited edition, one-of-a-kind Louis Vuitton pieces that were released subsequently after this show. So a huge rebound for China and for Louis Vuitton. Let's move on to some tech. If this looks familiar, it's probably because you've been seeing this all week. What do fashion brands and beauty brands need to know about the newest addition to the Instagram platform, Reels, right? Let's go ahead and scroll down so you can just see some visuals. So at this point, Reels has been around for about a week now, and Instagram's new TikTok competitor allows more brands to produce the type of short form videos that is very popular among Generation Z audiences. It's interesting because we've spoken creatively at WindowsWear about Reels and TikTok and the emergence of Gen Z being this sort of the era of dance, and instead of celebrities, it's sort of like everyday people, right, are sort of emerging as these accidental influencers through the TikTok platform. But how does that translate to retail? How does that translate to beauty? How does that translate to profitable monetization of these apps, right? Well, Reels has been criticized as a sort of copycat feature. but it could hold massive potential for fashion brands, which have only basically started to warm up to TikTok. Reels could attract the attention of popular influencers and shift brand priorities back to Instagram if they're smart. Now, Instagram Reels lets users create and share 15-second videos, right? If you're not familiar, users can enhance them with music, with augmented reality, or by splicing clips together. Last week, Instagram expanded it to 50 countries. That included the United States, the UK, Japan, and Australia, after beta testing it in Germany, France, India, and Brazil successfully. The push came as TikTok, which is, by the way, the fastest growing social media network of all time, faces a potential US ban that would disrupt its potential for brand partnerships, right? So we're seeing in our news and this political climate that the current person in the White House is interested in banning TikTok. What would that mean for the fastest growing social media network of all time? It would mean that their competitors would be very smart to push out their own variations of this, right? And if Reels becomes as successful as Stories, which was Instagram's 2016 answer to Snapchat, it would serve as another forum for brands to market to consumers through both organic and paid for content and funnel them toward buying directly on the platform. So that's the end goal, right? Is to get people on the platform and to keep them on the platform. And Instagram's ad revenue is projected to reach $12 billion this year in the US alone. So it is a huge market that they could be tapping into. Now, some doubt that Reels will be enough to convince TikTok stars to migrate over, as TikTok has basically successfully tapped in to Gen Z's evolving social media behavior. I personally don't know that I see the spirit of TikTok translating into Instagram, as the communities and what resonates for these two different communities is very, very, very different, right? But what is Reels doing successfully? The success of Reels depends on whether or not I think it can attract creators, right? So brands rely on creators and influencers to achieve this appropriate style of content and cadence on their platforms. Levi's is a great example of this. Levi's, for example, they do not share their content on their own TikTok accounts, but instead hire creators to share all of their content on their TikTok accounts for their campaigns. And TikTok has effectively courted these creators through recently initiating this billion-dollar fund for creators, while Instagram pays their creators to participate in their Reels launch, right? So it's different strategies. We'll see how it works out. It's only been a week. Dior is a good example of how a brand has managed to break into the TikTok realm, right? Dior joined TikTok to explore the idea of a more laid back approach to their content and promote their Dior cruise show back in July. They shared their models changing looks with the snap of a finger, but by far Dior's most successful TikTok campaign was a behind-the-scenes video with Cara Delevingne, which garnered more than 2.5 million views. So while Reels is an effort for Instagram to appeal to TikTok's younger audience, TikTok's older users might also appeal to the creators. For instance, Instagram users are almost exclusively between the ages of 18 to 35, while TikTok's general audience and their demographic is almost 90% under the age of 18. So we're talking about two very different demographics, but there should be some form of common ground between all of these. Now, something else to keep in mind is that it is a new format, but not a new platform, right? So one day after Reels launched, another TikTok competitor, Triller, reached a valuation of $1.25 billion, suggesting that this idea of short form videos have become platform agnostic, right? TikTok style content will likely resonate with users regardless of where it lives, and multiple platforms can be successful. But brands can't necessarily expect overnight success whenever they're utilizing a new platform, right? Part of TikTok's popular brand creator partnerships were ongoing, and a pattern that could translate to Reels is in contrast with traditional influencer content and single paid posts, right? But if the brands have the resources to do both TikTok and Reels, and if TikTok maintains its presence in the US, they absolutely should. I think that a healthy mix of marketing channels across all social media platforms is always the best way to go, right? Instagram stories, for example, didn't kill Snapchat. Snapchat still very much exists. It certainly ate into its growth, but there is always room for the content format to flourish on both and multiple platforms. Now, while some brands may share the same campaign on both TikTok and Reels, it's really too soon so far to see if their individual algorithms will lead to the same type of content being popular. And that's the thing about Instagram and Facebook both, is that they both heavily rely on their algorithms to make sure that their content is being pushed to the appropriate channels. And in that regard, Instagram does have the upper hand because generally people want to post in one platform, even though we have multiple social media platforms on our phones and on our laptops and on our tablets, right? If you can upload your story, your feed, and your reel all at once, convenience is a huge factor and a huge advantage. So that does it for our stories, our news stories for this week. Let's head on over to WindowsWear.com to take a look at some projects that some of our WindowsWear members are working on. So currently, right on over here, we've got Moose Knuckles Reopen campaign. So Teresa Silva is working on the Moose Knuckles Soho store reopening campaign of artists commissioned to transform their jackets into art. The net profits are donated in efforts to support local hospitals. So not only giving back, but creating some fantastic work in the process. Nice job, Teresa. We also have over at IDW Display. At IDW Display, we have 100% recyclable mannequins that are manufactured in Europe for JD Sport and Nike. So sustainable, recyclable, ethical, fantastic work by IDW Display. And finally, we have a project that's brought to us by Harlequin Design. Harlequin has been working on the Kipling and Beams designs, right? Based out of Tokyo, Japan. This design collaboration for the autumn-winter campaign shoot was produced and built by Harlequin. Great campaign. And those are our projects from our WindowsWear members. As always, make sure that your WindowsWear profile is up to date so you can be featured on our Tuesday WindowsWear Lives. Next Tuesday, we will be taking a look again at the retail news and see how it is ever changing. This Thursday at 3 p.m., please tune in this Thursday at 3 p.m. For our next installment of WindowsWear Live with our very, very special guest and dear friend of WindowsWear, Tim Chechi of Tim Chechi Consulting. He will be presenting 15 years, 3 brands, and 4 truths. So please stick around on Thursday at 3 p.m. WindowsWear.com/live for a fantastic presentation from Tim Chechi of Tim Chechi Consulting. On what's going on in our industry. As always, thank you so much for joining. If you have any questions, you are welcome to ask. If not, I will go ahead and leave you with all of that, and we will see you on Thursday at 3 p.m. and then next Tuesday at 3 p.m. for the news.